Rockies Mountain, known as Andes Mountain. So these mountains run parallel to the coast. At the same time, you will see a different color code. यहाँ पे there will be some narrow line which will be of a darker blue in color. I am using the red color code to show you that line. यहाँ पे it will be written as Guatemala Trench. It is written as Guatemala Trench. यहाँ पे it is written as Peru, Chile, sorry, Peru, Chile Trench region. Peru, Chile Trench region. There is absence of such in India. So that means, can we generalize in the variation in the height, or in the variation in the depth and width of the continental shelf? We can say the continental shelf are narrow when there are high fold mountains running parallel to the coast. So when the high fold mountains run parallel to the coast, the continental shelf are narrower. So we can generalize the statement, therefore in North America and South America, the continental shelves are narrower. Why this presence of a trench here? Because how are the fold mountains formed? Fold mountains are formed due to the collision of a plate boundaries. So there is one plate that is the continental plate, which is folded. Some parts of the continental plate, some parts of the oceanic plates are folded. The continental plate goes upwards or rises upwards, while the oceanic plate goes below the continental plate. And there is a tremendous amount of folding of this region. So there is a tremendous amount of folding. So there is one plate which is going below the other plate. Now here you remember the oceanic plate is going below the continental plate. And in this, when there is a deeper part here, you can see this deeper part is the oceanic trench. That is it. The blue shaded area, this is an oceanic trench. What does it indicate? It indicates the subduction zone. Subduction matlab niche jana. It indicates the area where the oceanic plate is going below the continental plate. So that means in the areas where the fold mountains, again remember the areas where high mountains, what are these highest mountains? These are fold mountains. So in the areas where the fold mountains are parallel to the coast, continental shelf is narrower. Why the continental shelf is narrower? Because everything is compressed. Because how are these fold mountains formed? These fold mountains are formed due to accident, due to collision of two plates. So when the collision occurs, everything gets compressed to give rise to the fold mountains. And at one point, the plate goes below the oceanic plate. So the continental plate are folded, sediments are folded, land margin, which is continental shelf, is just a margin of a land, it gets folded, and therefore the width of continental shelf decreases. But such areas also have oceanic trenches parallel to them. So Guatemala Trench in North America, because what are Rockies? Rockies are the area where the Pacific plate is going below the North American plate. What are Andes? Where the Pacific plate is going below the South American plate. Remember your geomorphology lecture. So we can say these are North or South American plates. And this is an oceanic plate, which the most important, I am taking Pacific plate. I am not considering I hope that you know what are the other marginal plates such as Nazca plate, So the one thing we can generalize, the fold mountains are, the continental shelf is narrow when the fold mountains are parallel to the coast. Other thing we can generalize here, this areas, the oceanic trenches lie parallel to the fold mountains because they represent a subduction zone or the area where the oceanic plate is going below the continental plate. So what you call this zone as a subduction zones. The subduction zones. So the trenches represent the subduction zone. Uska example is therefore very narrow continental shelf along the western side of North and South Americas where Rockies and Andes mountains are there. So the continental shelf, the first thing is continental shelf is narrow. Where fold mountains are parallel to the coast. Why they are narrower? Because of collision of the plates. Collision of plates. There is intense folding. And therefore width of continental shelf decreases. Therefore the width of the continental shelf decreases. I hope that you understand this. What I have written here is the continental shelf are narrower when the fold mountains are parallel to the coastline. Why? Because of the intense folding mechanism, the width of the continental shelf decreases. This is what I have written. Decreases I have shown with the arrow. Now what is the example of this? The example is obviously for the preliminary examination you will have to do the examples. You will have to do because these are what is asked in the examination. Examples is the continental shelf along the western coast of North and South Americas. Which two mountains are there? Where the Rockies mountain are parallel and the Andes are parallel. So the example is North and South America where Rockies and Andes are parallel. Now if this is there, then what is there in India? We have a continuous mountain system such as Western Ghats, and still we are having a very wide continental shelf. Is it not contradictory to what we have generalized? That the first is the continental shelf are narrower when the fold mountains run parallel to the coast. So this is a generalized statement and it is a truth statement. Then why the continental shelf are wider on the western coast of India? By this diagram you can see the western coast of India, that is along the state of Gujarat. This is west, this is east, this is north, and this is south. So by the diagram here we can see that the continental shelves are wider on the western coast of India. At the same time you have Western Ghat region which is lying parallel to the western coast of India. So how our first condition is not satisfied? So how our first statement is wrong? Because what we have written, the continental shelf, I will rub this, only keep the condition. You just remember yahan pe the example is Andes and Rockies mountain. Because in this you remember the examples are Rockies and Andes. Examples are Rockies and Andes. So the second is Now what is a Western Ghat? Western Ghat is not a fold mountain. So continental shelf is narrow only when the fold mountain is there. What is a Western Ghat? Actually, when we'll do Indian geography, we'll see that Western Ghat is not even a mountain. There was Indian plate. India was like this along the Western Ghat region initially. Now during the formation of Himalayas, some crack occurred in this region. This was where the Arabian Sea was located, the first condition. This was where the Arabian Sea was located, the first condition. Now what happened? Due to the cracking of the earth's surface, due to cracking up of the India around the Western Ghat region, a part of the western coast of India, that is the part of a Deccan plateau, went below the coast, while the other part remained like this. The Indian coastline became like this. So this is how the Western Ghat is there. The area jahan pe crack was, the area where the crack occurred went below the sea. That is, what is this? The Western Ghats. For the person now who is standing on the western coast of India, this part of a plateau which went below the ocean looks like a mountain, but actually they are not mountain. Western Ghat is just a part of a plateau which is gone below the sea. That means it has submerged, and therefore we have a crack, and therefore we have an high continental shelf, and therefore we have a wide continental shelf. Now, on the other hand, for a person who is standing near Mumbai, near Mangalore, near Kerala, if you look on the western side, if you are standing towards the western coast or from the Arabian Sea region, the Western Ghats look like a mountain, but they are not mountain. It is just an edge of a plateau which has gone below the sea. So this was how the initial condition was, and this is how later on, due to the cracking, it went below the sea. So the Western Ghats are not the fold mountains, and therefore yahan pe, because this is a land which has gone below the sea, you can see the width of the continental shelf also increased. So this part jahan pe pehle continental shelf was not wide, now it has increased. How do you know this? If you remember the mythology, sometimes you have to take the use of mythology to understand the geography of a nation. For example, Ramayana and Mahabharata give very good description of a geography of India. The way the Ram went for his Vanvas, the Ram went to Sri Lanka to find Sita. In Ramayana, the geography of each and every region is well described. Same, if you remember Mahabharata, if you remember the Dwarka of Krishna, if you remember, the Dwarka was the capital of Krishna, and if you again remember, Dwarka went under the sea. Dwarka got submerged. Where is Dwarka? Dwarka was located here, and now somewhere here Dwarka is located. That is, it has went under the sea. This itself shows that there has been submergence of a coast. So that means the continental shelf is wider where the coast has submerged. Where the coast has submerged. Therefore, we can say, because the Western Ghat is an example of a submerged coastline, or the western coast of India is an example of a submerged coastline, therefore it has a wider continental shelf. Example is the western coast of India. Example is western coast of India. Example is an western coast of India, which is an example of an submerged coastline having a wider continental shelf. So therefore, how are the questions asked in UPSC? In UPSC, one of the past year question I will ask you is how to use your atlas. Which of the state has widest continental shelf? Which state has widest continental shelf? One of the option was Andhra Pradesh. The second option was Gujarat. The third option was Maharashtra. And the fourth option was Tamil Nadu. Fourth option was Tamil Nadu. So, I am asking you the same question. Which state in India has the widest continental shelf? Is it Andhra Pradesh? Can you see here from the map wider or narrower as compared to Gujarat? Obviously narrower. The blue area is less. Maharashtra? The blue area is lesser. It is widest in Gujarat. Tamil Nadu? No, it is lesser. So the state having widest continental shelf is Gujarat in India. Why? Because the continental shelf are wider when the coast has submerged. Krishna's Dwarka had submerged. Or the entire western coast is an example of a submerged coastline. And the entire eastern coast is an example of a emerged or outcoming coastline. So therefore the western coast of India is wider where the continental shelf is wider. How is it reflected in economy? Which that I will do at this end of this lecture. Now the third is, if we look here, if we look at the coast around West Bengal region, this is river Ganga, this is river Brahmaputra. They meet and then they form the largest delta in the world. This is river Krishna, this is river Godavari and Krishna. They also form a delta. So यहाँ पे the continental shelf is wide, यहाँ पे the continental shelf is wide. Why? Because what is the continental shelf? Continental shelf is a part of an continent. Now, if this is where the rivers is draining in the ocean, if the river is draining in the ocean, what will be the rivers doing? Rivers will bring large amount of load, large amount of deposited material, large amount of sediment. What is a sediment? Broken rock, broken mud material. So the rivers carry them in a larger amount. The bigger the river, larger is the sediment load of a river. Larger is the broken rock material river carries. Therefore, river looks muddy in color. River is not transparent like this water. River water is never transparent like this, never clear like this. Because the river is carrying sediments. Now, when the river is carrying sediments, when it goes into the ocean, its speed reduces. Therefore, it deposits the sediments as soon as it reaches the ocean. What does the sediment deposition does? It increases the width and decreases the depth of an ocean floor. So the continental shelf ka width goes on increasing. So the continental shelf the width increases due to the deposition of sediments. That means we can write the third condition here. I will write it here. The third condition is continental shelf is wider. Continental shelf is wider when river enters the sea. And river enters the sea. That is at the mouth of a river. At the mouth of a river. Why it is wider? Because of the deposition of large amount of sediments by the river. Therefore, the continental shelf is wider. Example is Krishna Godavari Delta region. Because what is the mouth of a river when it enters the sea? Known as delta. So Krishna Godavari Delta region. Ganga Brahmaputra Delta region. In fact, Ganga Brahmaputra Delta is the largest delta in the world, because this delta is formed by two larger rivers combined. It is a combined delta of Ganga river and the Brahmaputra river system. So this is an example of a example is Godavari Krishna delta. second is Ganga Brahmaputra delta. Ganga Brahmaputra delta. Therefore, when the river enters the sea, I have written here Ganga and Brahmaputra delta, if it's not visible to you in the video lecture. So it is Krishna Godavari delta and the Ganga Brahmaputra delta. So if the river is entering the sea, the continental shelf are wider. That means even though the eastern coast of India is an example of an emerged coastline, still the continental shelf is wider because the Ganga and Brahmaputra river enters the sea, Godavari Krishna river enters the sea, around Tamil Nadu Kaveri river enters the sea. So therefore these are examples of wider continental shelf in the eastern coast of India. So if the question comes, why is the continental shelf wider in West Bengal? You know, because because Ganga and Brahmaputra delta. Why it is wider in Andhra Pradesh? Because Krishna and Godavari delta. Why it is wider in Tamil Nadu? Because of Kaveri delta. Now these are the three conditions you remember. Continental shelf is narrow when the fold mountains is parallel to the coast. Example, Rocky and Andes on which coast of North America? On the western coast of North America. Second, the continental shelf is wider where the coast is submerged. Example is western coast of India. Therefore, the Gujarat is the state having widest continental shelf in India. And third, continental shelf is wider when the river enters the sea, that is around the delta region. Therefore, though the eastern coast has a narrow continental shelf overall, but the area where Ganga Brahmaputra delta, the area where Krishna Godavari delta, the area where Kaveri delta in West Bengal, in Andhra Pradesh and in Tamil Nadu, you have wider continental shelf. So these are the variations in the continental shelf. Remember them for your examination point of view. Now, what is the economic importance of a continental shelf, or we can write about the importance of a continental shelf. Importance of continental shelf. What is the importance of continental shelf? The importance of a continental shelf. Which part of India is the largest producer of petroleum in India? Is it Assam? Is it West Bengal? Is it Krishna Godavari Delta region? Or is it Basin High or Mumbai High region? Where are most of the petrochemical industries located in India? Either in Gujarat, either in Basin High, Mumbai High region. So remember, the Basin High, Mumbai High region is the largest producers of petroleum in, that is either this Mumbai High and uske niche Basin High region. Mumbai High and Basin High region. Where you will learn Basin High one more, where you will learn the word Basin again in history, the Treaty of Basin between the Marathas and the English power. So the Basin is important both from historical point of view and geographical point of view. Now here, the Basin High and Mumbai High. Why the word high? Because they are deep inside the sea. They are out, they are not on the land, they are the outshore producing centers, therefore high. Now why the large petroleum deposits, or why anywhere in the world the continental shelf goes on like this? Even if you look at the Gulf region, that is West Asia, or Middle East, that is Saudi Arabia. What is this region known as? West, it is known as West Asia. Which region? The Gulf countries, matlab the Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Dubai. What is this region known as? This region is either known as Middle East or West Asia. So again from the examination point of view, इस साल question आया था, where is the Middle East located? So Middle East is not on the eastern side, but on the western side of Asia, that is the West Asia. का नाम ही Middle East है. So the Mumbai High or Basin High. That means the continental shelf have economic importance, that is, they are important source of mineral and energy resources. Important source of mineral exploration, mineral and energy resources. Energy resources. Why they are important source of mineral and energy resources? Because if this is a continental shelf region and the other is a continental slope, we do not have that much technology that we can construct a platform for the exploration of oil and natural gas deep inside the sea. That is around 3,000 to 4,000 to 6,000 meters. You know Mumbai-Worli Sea Link. That is one of the important engineering marvels in India, in the city of Mumbai, which is built on the sea, has taken many years. That is, they are considered as an engineering marvel because construction inside the ocean is not possible. So the continental shelf even allows us, because of the less depth, allows us to explore the minerals, allows us to construct a platform for the exploration of minerals, exploration of petroleum. Also because what is petroleum, what is coal, what are these energy deposits? These are sedimentary rocks. याद है हमने किया था, these are sedimentary rocks of organic origin. मतलब some living organism have been buried under the sea. Over the period, their nature has changed, and because of the excess of carbon, human beings, any living being has carbon inside them. So this carbon gets converted into energy, and therefore petrol, diesel or petroleum products are known as fossil fuels. And what they release carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Even if we burn the human beings, burn any living beings, carbon dioxide will be released. If we bury the living beings, if the living beings are buried for longer period of time, they will be converted into fossil fuel region. So continental shelf is a part of a continent which has gone below the sea during the ice age period, during the increase in the sea level period. It is also gone below the sea because rivers bring sediments and deposit them. So this rivers also has some kind of living sediments. Over the period they die and they get deposited and they get converted into petroleum. Therefore fossil fuels. Why they are known as fossil fuels? Because they are made from fossils. Fossils are made from living organisms. So these are important source of energy and mineral resources. Example is petroleum resource. Example is petroleum resource. Example, in India, these are the two largest producers of petroleum resource in India. The second is, forget about the petroleum resource now. The second is, if you want to catch a fish, where are the chances of catching a fish? You will take the boat here and go deep inside the sea. You will take the boat here and go deep inside the sea, and then we will pull nets, we will catch the fish from here. But the fishes will be present only if there are large number of plants here, known as planktons. Why? Because the fishes require plants as foods. These plants grow in the areas where the sunlight can penetrate. Therefore, these plants are known as phyto, that means sunlight planktons. Now, this phytoplanktons can grow only up to the depth of 200 meters because sunlight can penetrate only up to the depth of 200 meters. Corals also require food, require sunlight as a photosynthesis. So corals also can grow only up to the depth of 200 meters. That is the area which is a photic zone. जहाँ पे sunlight can reach this area is known as an photic zone on the surface of the earth. So these are the areas corals, phytoplanktons. Now these corals, phytoplanktons have large number of fishes. The corals or phytoplanktons cannot grow on the continental shelf. Obviously they cannot grow in the oceanic trenches या फिर deep sea plains, that is abyssal plain. Because what is the depth of these areas? 6,000 meters, 3,000 meters. Obviously 200 meters के बाद they cannot grow. So the largest fishing areas are the areas of widest continental shelf. In fact, if we have seen in the world map, if you remember, these largest fishing areas are concentrated in the areas where there is a meeting up of cold and warm currents. Why? Warm currents, ocean currents, originate in the equatorial regions, and the cold currents originate in the polar regions. So in this region, when there is a meeting up of cold and warm currents, though we have not done the ocean currents, but we have done the temperature inversion, and उसमें हमने किया था the areas where the cold and warm current. This is a Labrador current, which is an example of a cold current. Why? Because it is coming from the polar region. This is a Gulf Stream which is coming from the equatorial region. It is an example of a warm current. Now these are the areas of this. This is the largest fishing area in the world. This is the largest fishing area in the world, known as Newfoundland region. Or Grand Banks region. Or the Grand Banks region. Grand Banks or the Newfoundland region. Why this is the largest fishing area in the world? Because this represent the areas having wide continental shelf, and plus the icing on the cake is these are the areas where cold and warm currents meet. So the nutrients are brought from the equatorial regions by the warm currents. Nutrients are brought from the polar regions by the cold current. Due to their meeting, unka speed is reduced and the nutrients get deposited on this wide continental shelf region. And therefore, this regions there is large growth of phytoplanktons, and therefore largest fishing areas of the world. So what you have to remember is the continental shelf. Continental shelf due to their shallowness, allows sunlight to penetrate, which results into growth of minute plants such as phytoplanktons, What happens when the phytoplanktons grow? Fishes thrive in this region. Fishes thrive in this region, and therefore these are the largest fishing grounds in the world. Therefore these are the richest fishing grounds in the world. These are the richest fishing grounds in the world. Especially these richest fishing grounds in the world are more enriched if the cold and warm current meets. Example is the Newfoundland region or the Grand Banks region on the eastern coast of North America. So the western coast of North America does not have a continental shelf, but the eastern coast of North America has a wide continental shelf, and due to wide continental shelf there is a large growth of phytoplanktons, plus meeting of cold Labrador Current and warm Gulf Stream makes this region nutrient rich, and therefore the phytoplanktons grow in abundance, resulting into the largest or the richest fishing area in the world. The same other area is near the Japan coast, where cold Oyashi and warm Kuroshio current meet. We will see while doing the ocean currents. So you remember, the continental shelf are the richest fishing grounds in the world. So what are the two conditions required for fishing? One is the widest continental shelf, and the second is the meeting of warm and cold ocean currents. Remember this in mind. Past year question. What are the areas of widest or richest fishing ground? First condition, widest continental shelf, and the second is meeting up of warm and cold currents. Why widest continental shelf? Because sunlight can penetrate, therefore plants can grow. Fishes are not producers. Fishes, like human beings, are consumers. They cannot produce their own food, therefore they have to depend on plant which use sunlight for photosynthesis to produce the food. Sunlight can penetrate only up to the depth of 200 meters. That is only on the continental shelf, and therefore these are the largest fishing grounds, because fishes come to eat this planktons. Now the third is, see the height of a wave or tide. The height of a wave or tide depends on the depth. The tides or waves are not having high height in the deep oceans, but as soon as they come near the coast, because the depth decreases, therefore the height of a tide starts increasing. Jitna kam depth, utna the height of a tide will increase. Therefore the high tidal regions of the world, jahan pe very high tides come, are the areas of shallow ocean. What do you mean by shallow ocean? Are the areas where the continental shelf is very wide and very shallow. So these are the areas of high tides. Now, what do we have to do with the tides? The difference between the high tide and the difference between the low tide. When we calculate this, we get tidal energy. That is energy from the tides. What is this tidal energy? The tidal energy is the energy which is taken from the tides. That is how it is done. We will do while doing economic geography, but remember, it is the difference between high tide water and the low tide water. Now, the continental shelf, jitna shallow, utna the tidal range, that is the difference between high tide, tidal range, is equal to difference between high tide water level minus low tide water level. HT means high tide water level, minus LT means low tide water level. So the tidal range is higher. So that means the continental shelf, jitna narrow, jitna wider, jitna shallow, these are the regions of producing tidal energy. That is our renewable energy concept. That is energy without fossil fuels. That is clean energy, which is going to be focused, and therefore important part for you, especially in the coming years, we are going to focus on clean energy. So, the areas of continental shelf, areas of shallow continental shelf, areas of shallow continental shelf have large tidal ranges. Large tidal ranges. What does it help? It helps into producing tidal energy. Helps into producing tidal energy. So these are the sites for potential tidal energy development. Now you know that in India, which is an area having the shallowest continental shelf? Gujarat. Gulf of Kutch and Gulf of Kambat region. Now if I ask you which is the state having the largest tidal range in India, the answer is Gujarat. Now if I ask you which is the potential site for tidal energy development in India, you know the answer, Gujarat. Therefore, in India, because see, this geography is from the exam point of view we are doing, and unless we do it from the Indian point of view, there is not much for the, so you should know each and everything from the Indian point of view. Now because the continental shelf you know is very narrow, especially the tides are very high in the Gulf of Kutch and the Gulf of Cambay region. Therefore, the tidal energy is very high in the state of Gujarat, in the Gulf of Kutch region, in the Gulf of Cambay region. This is the site for the potential development of tidal energy. Now, this is the importance of the continental shelf. So, marine fisheries, which are the largest producing state, Andhra Pradesh, large tidal coast, then Gujarat, then Maharashtra. These are the areas जहाँ पे wider continental shelf है, यहाँ पे इसलिए fish production भी ज़्यादा है. Where large amount of petroleum energy, where is large amount of petrochemical plants, chemical industry in India, Gujarat and Maharashtra along the western coast, Mumbai region. Why? Because of the, allows exploration of minerals. So, and third is even the energy. So, the continental shelf is the economically most important region. That was the importance of a continental shelf. Now we will continue with the abyssal plain in the next lecture. Till we meet again, thank you very much. Enjoy your studies.